Hello viewers, good afternoon. Hope you're having a lovely Friday. Well, the social contract theory places the responsibility on government or on the state to provide its citizens with the basic social services, and this, among others, includes security. So we shall examine the state of security of this nation, but as it stands, we know that various police stations have been attacked, but also the issue of human security, and therein we shall talk about the human rights state of this country as well. I'm joined by a panel of established senior citizens of this country that is now my privilege to introduce to you. From my immediate left is Honorable Alaso, who is the National Coordinator of the Alliance for National Transformation. Honorable, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, next to Honorable is retired Major Awich Pollar, who is the Secretary for External Services at the NRM Secretariat. Retired Major, thank you for being here again.
I think the right citation is Director for External Affairs, NRM Party. Thank you very much, viewers. Nice to be with you and happy to be with Honorable Alaso.
All right, thank you. We shall be joined by some other more panelists, but along the way. For now, let us begin with those who are here. Retired Major, police stations being attacked by armed gunmen who we don't know. Some have been killed. In your own words, if you place the security of this country on a weighing scale, how would you evaluate it as it stands now?
Of course, if I put it on a weighing scale, and meaning A and B, which side is good and bad, the good still weighs. Even if you put it on a scale of 1 to 10, it's still 9 over 10. So, but let me put a disclaimer that the data and the security analysis should have been better placed by the persons in charge. Those are the serving army officers and police. I'm a retired army officer, as you know. But you mentioned something about social contract. I can't run away from the fact that as a ruling party, we are the one with the social contract with the people. We won the election on a manifesto. Among them is to provide peace and security of lives and property. So we cannot run away from it as a ruling party by abdicating from a role we have formed, because when we win, we form a government, and there are relevant line ministries, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Internal Affairs, and various state agencies. So I'm not running away from ownership, but I'm just saying I do not have the facts, because we have agents who do it. But of course, those agents do it on behalf of the ruling party, because we are the one who have the social contract with the people. But as I said earlier, police stations have been attacked. I think even a military installation is attacked. In the case of Magamaga, it was not police, it was an army position. So that poses a threat, because as a security agency, everything is not taken for granted. You take seriousness every detail. But so far, why I'm putting it on a good weighing scale is because it has not affected the activities and the operations of both government and the operations of community. People still can go around with their business, go to their gardens, go to their office, go to their businesses in shops, in towns. So that is why it has not weighed badly. But it's not taken for granted, because the experts who are in the theater now, that I said should have talked better, those who are in the theater, those who are in the operation, should have been able to communicate whether the analysis now is that they are a political motivation or simply criminal motivation, because the intentions and the motivations also factor in this kind of discussion. But we do trust that as a political party, as a ruling political party who had a social contract with the people to provide peace and security, we keep on urging through our systems that, hey, government, are you doing what we promised the people? Go and check this. Because we, as a party, we supervise our government, we form the government. So we keep asking them, please do this, because that's what we told the people. and the people have a right to be protected. So on a weighing scale, it's good.
All right, on a weighing scale, it's good. That is retired Major. Honorable, how would you define our security as it stands now?
Well, the cardinal role of the state is to provide protection to persons and their property. And it is extremely important that the government does an audit of the state of security in this country. We have had very complex scenarios, and we can't even discuss this in isolation. We had issues of, I don't know, pangas or whatever that happened in Massacre. That was insecurity to person and to property. We have had issues in Karamoja and the neighborhoods, insecurity to person and property. We have had issues in Kampala, and now the issues with the police station and military installations. I wouldn't make my assessment quantitatively. I think I'll make my assessment qualitatively. And I would say the state of security is worrying. When the NRA went to the bush, those are the very things they started doing. Hit a police station, pick up one gun. Hit another one tomorrow, pick up 2 guns. Before we know, there was an established force that fully destabilized the country and finally overthrew the government. The other aspect that I would like to remind our listeners, which for me is also very critical, is the fact that over years, the government has refused to audit the guns in the hands of civilians. We all recall a time when a group of over 4,000 people were armed in the cities. They were called, crime preventers? Some people say they were crime promoters. And it looks like that group has just fizzled away. Maybe if General Kale Kaihura was still very much in office, we would ask him, have you fully recovered those guns? And where is that army? Because it looked like an independent army on its own. I also reflect on the season when government again armed the youth of Karamoja, purportedly to defend themselves. Unfortunately, they turned the guns into weapons for raiding the neighborhood, but also commodities that could be sold and you get some money. So it seems to me that there are a lot of guns out in the community, and that makes us extremely worried about the state of security. Secondly, it seems to me that government is losing grip on who is owning and who is using the gun. I have been watching on social media, issues where soldiers who should be extremely disciplined jump out of the car because they have had been rubbed on by a civilian, and they pull out guns, and these are people in uniform. I watched another situation around Kireka, and there was an abduction. People in uniform carrying guns. They took away some, was it a Pakistani or Palestinian person? Now, that cannot be called normal. We demand an accountability from the state, because these days you don't know who you're meeting, you don't know who the next kidnapper is, you even don't know who is surrounding you, whether they are legally or illegally armed. I was listening to a clip attributed to one of the ministers, my good sister, the Honorable Mohanga. and she was trying to downplay the situation. In my view, that is not the right thing for a responsible government. It is not proper for government to simply say, you know, we don't think it is worrying. No, because if we reach that level, you know how heavily guarded all our people in authority are. From members of, why are they guarding themselves like that? If the situation is not worrying, every member of parliament has at least 2 policemen around him or her. Every minister has at least 5. We have anti-terrorism. I meet them on the road and you ask yourself, this country, the security situation in this country must be so bad to warrant all those heavily armed people. You know, in a traffic jam, those soldiers can jump out. They can jump out. This one is carrying, I don't know guns by their names, retired major is here. There is this one which is round, with like a big round thing, magazine. And it is very short. You see somebody jumps out with that one, another one jumps out, and all of a sudden, the roundabout or the traffic jam becomes a security scene. Something is happening. If there is nothing worrying in this country, I still pose the question, why would our leaders be that heavily guarded? What are they worried of? The only problem is when these guys begin hitting, they hit some police, and you know, the nature of our police stations. Sometimes I feel very bad. Some are in mud and wattle houses, some are, you know, such kind of police stations. So, and then they are not even having many police in it. So if they find 3 of them, they overpower them, they take away the gun, they kill the human being. Yeah. And then when they attack an innocent person, government will say, we shall investigate, no report comes out. But let me tell you, for ordinary citizens like you and I, it's something of concern. And
Retired Major, I have to agree with Honorable that the issue of security should be a concern to all of us, because a threat to security anywhere is a threat to security in a given place is a possible threat to security everywhere. And you said that, you know, people are going about with their businesses normally, but I don't think that the absence of war means peace. People might, yes, be going about with their businesses, but under what circumstances? Maybe they have no option but to actually go and work, but they're working under uncertainty. So just 2 concerns are being raised by Honorable. One is that what we are seeing is an old tactic of your political party, and maybe certain individuals are borrowing from your from your tactics, or they're reading from your book. That is one. 2 is that does the level of security that our public officers have, does it speak to the actual reality? Like she is saying, that because they're overly guarded, it therefore sends a very strong message.
Okay. Your first question was about the president.
Yes, the president. Sir.
And then the second one is about the good. But let me also mention something Honorable mentioned about security officers coming out and kidnapping or doing that. I happen to have been in NRA with a very demonstrated historical discipline, to the extent that a bigger strength of our support came from the discipline of the army, a special respect for the civilians, and even respect for the enemies, including war prisoners. Because I think NRA is the only army that took upon itself not to imprison past soldiers. I mean, soldiers were imprisoned in Jinja, in Luzira, and others taken to Tanzania as war prisoners. And a similar thing could have occurred, but there was a reorganization program in NRA, and all of them were absorbed. Now, touching a civilian or indisciplined behavior on a civilian would earn you death penalty, and by firing squad. So that historical demonstration of discipline and adherence to respect for the civilians is well documented. Now, About the alleged occurrence that Honorable is saying, I need to understand the context on fact-by-fact basis so that I can draw an analysis of what happened. But I want to assure you that the discipline is very firm on soldiers vis-a-vis civilians, and death penalties all crowded over our penal code, and court martial is seen to be exercising it. In fact, we have had intervention from Western countries who don't support death penalty, that we are going too far. So that is as far as the alleged indiscipline of officers and men is concerned on civilians. Now, on the matter of escorts by on president, yes. Well, somebody can say that, and that's what I said. I needed people who are in the theater to tell us the analysis now. Does this have a political connotation, or is it just a group of thugs, but only that their thuggery coincides with history? So, and I really put a disclaimer that you needed those in the theater to say that. But I think if it was by politically organized people, I think somebody would have made proclamations. No, normally they claim we did this mission, we carried this mission. They're always proud about it, and nothing so far is done. But maybe those in the theater could have the detail. So I would urge that for now, since there's no claiming victory by any political organized group, and also since those in the theater have not told us that, so there's nothing political about it. Now, about the effect on the livelihood operations of life is that we all know there's a freedom which some of us rarely think about it, freedom from fear. That we are supposed to live free from fear. I do not see that these random attacks are still led to freedom from fear. Because if that was the case, we would now be seeing people closing their doors early. People, by say 5, 6, there would be no more traffic, or there wouldn't be movement from one area to another. I think we haven't reached freedom from fear. So that's why I say people are still busy doing their business. Now, on the issue of people who have escorts and the implication to security, well, maybe some people see it as a fashion. It is fashionable to move with escorts, not really security. But also, I think the genesis of reinforced security on leaders ordinarily would come from security briefs that so and so as personal threats. But also some leaders request, depending on how they look at their safety. Some leaders request for it. I don't know how they make assessments. Sometimes it's actually political relationship, not security against the state. Therefore, either request or assessment by other people, or fashion as it may be, I think I personally, and we have not yet interpreted the massive increase on the number of individual security guards per person to mean insecurity. And also, some time back, if you may wish to call it security, in regards to individual leaders or persons who have multiple escorts for their personal security, normally it is based on many factors. One, some request for it, depending on the personal threats that they feel, but also sometimes others are on assessment by concerned agencies if such a person warrants that. But as I said jokingly, though, to Honorable, is that maybe some of them want it for fashion. But notwithstanding that, I do not think that the national security threats should be judged by number of escorts some individual persons have assessed. I I also wanted to add that sometimes the internal security was affected by external factors, but all that still honorable would say that is insecurity anyway. So, but I want to dissuade that it's not enough to assess the national security on the number or the multiple escorts individual MPs have or individual ministers have.
All right, thank you. Viewers, just like I had promised you, are joined by Afande Luke Owoyesigyire, who is the Kampala Metropolitan Police spokesperson. Afande, many thanks for sparing the time to be here.
Well, thank you very much.
And you're welcome.
Glad to be here in your new studios.
Okay. Let me just pick up from you right away. We are getting views on the weighing scale. If you weighed Uganda's security status right now on a weighing scale, how would you evaluate it? Well, knowing that the role of police is to protect and serve. With the ongoing attacks on the police stations, the question of human security, where would you put our national security status right now?
Well, we have always informed, before I go into that, maybe I would like to say my name correctly. My name is Assistant Superintendent of Police, Luke Owoyesigyire. I'm the Deputy Spokesperson, Kampala Metropolitan. About the status of security within the country, we have always informed you every week, actually, that the general security situation within the country is normal. And what do we mean by normal? That there is no chaos. People are not looting shops. People are not doing activities that might jeopardize the security of the country in general. And I think that's one of the reasons why tourists still come in without bodyguards, without being followed up where they're going to sleep, without a lot of questions. So that's what we mean by normal. And we relate to that within the region we are in. We cannot relate our security situation to Switzerland or anything. We do in comparison within the region that we are in. Yes.
Honorable Alaso, there is no chaos, there are no lootings, everything is normal. That is coming from an institution that is mandated to protect.
There's no fear.
There's no fear. Contrary to what you were saying earlier on. So were you just fear-mongering?
Not really. All of us want a Uganda where there is no looting, by the way. Because I also have my small shop downtown. So we all want a Uganda where nobody is looting, where nobody is ransacking shops and stuff like that. But as I pointed earlier, now that Afande is here, the question of doing the audit of guns illegally in private hands is very important. You see, when they attack a police post, maybe the essence is to pick up a gun, let's assume so, because that's all they have there. They don't have money or something like that. So the idea is to pick up a gun, perhaps. But before they attack those police posts, we are talking about the security of individuals, because that's the obligation of the state. First and foremost, the security of individuals and their property. When police stations are attacked, that scales it up to another level. So I'll go back to also comment on the fact that just because people cannot express themselves anymore in this country freely, and Afande knows that these days if you try to do a demonstration, Afande will bring everything that they have. I don't know whether they are on trial, whether they are whatever. They bring all of them, all manner of them, into the streets. So the individuals are keeping quiet. People are bottling their expression. I told the late Haronda, that was my last conversation with him. I told him, General, the worst you can do, in my view, as an ordinary person, you know, they are security experts, I don't know which, their angle, the way they perceive things is different. But from me, a lay woman, I said the worst you can do is to stop people from talking, because then they begin to look for other alternatives to express the same feeling. And I think we need to tie this into this fear. You're asking, is there a fear? There is fear. There is pain. There is bottling of anger, because all means of expression that would be available for us are no longer allowed. You know, the restrictions, what was that law that you are using, Afande? Look,
During COVID.
not even the one of
Wow.
Public
public
management.
order.
management.
You people have perfected the abuse and misuse of public order to the extent that if I want to go and say that, now you've added the Computer Misuse Act. So if I want to go and say that I don't want Parliament borrowing all these loans, Afande will bring public order, somebody will bring computer misuse. So then I have to bottle up that anger. So it's not only anger, the suppression causes fear and it causes pain. And that answers your first question.
Yeah.
The
But
absence of war, is it peace? And we don't have peace. You may have a situation where people are not fighting. But I think basically Ugandans are not feeling very peaceful in their hearts.
I want to bring Afande back. Afande, who exactly is attacking these police posts? And what are they looking for?
Everyone is certain of what they are looking for. Like I said, the general situation in the country is calm, relatively calm and normal. But notwithstanding this, all this that has been happening, it's not that I've come here to ignore what has been happening within the country. We also take note of what is happening. The attacks on police officers, the 2 officers in Busika, now 3, who were shot, their weapons taken, and 2 killed at the scene, and later on 1 succumbed of the injuries he sustained. And then the military checkpoint where 1 officer was killed. We saw of recent over the weekend in Kapeka, where our officers were on patrol, and then someone started shooting at them. Very, very promptly, they responded and turned the fire against the assailants, and 2 of them were killed on spot. There were only 2 people. But what we have noticed in all these occasions, what has been happening in Kampala Metropolitan against security guards who are guarding, someone is guarding a supermarket or a bar, is attacked, and all they take is the gun. They don't take the merchandise in the shop or anything. So what we have noticed that the guns are being taken. That is one thing. Who they are, what their intentions are, we are being able to notice among the people that have been put out of action. That's a word I can use during the exchange in Jinja, the exchange in Kapeka. The 3 people have been put out of action, and the 3 guns which have been recovered. We've noticed some criminals who have been rampant, make arrests, taking courts of law. Some have served sentences. That is after, of course, their death. And we've noticed one of them was actually an ex-convict. Then the other is someone who retired the army or has been on the run. So you notice all these things. Their identities are known now, but we don't know their intention as of now. So we cannot come here and say, and I think when the Honorable Minister was in Parliament yesterday, he also didn't mention what they are.
Okay, but what at least he mentioned was that the attacks on the police posts are being done, some of them are being done in connivance with police officers.
In connivance with police officers?
Yes, these were his words.
I don't have those facts. Maybe you can expound more on that. But what I know is that officers have lost their lives, whether there's been connivance. That is something that is under investigation. It is not something that I would say is completely concrete, but we don't know the intention. That is all I can say, and we don't know these people.
Retired Major, You had concerns?
Yes, I had a follow-up of Honorable Alaso's assertion about freedom of expression, because he seems to say maybe it is a factor. But I want to say that Uganda is so superb in rights areas. We all know that Article 44, and which is respected in our Constitution, provides for non-derogable rights, rights that you cannot derogate from. And that is, nobody can make anybody a slave. Even Museveni can't make Okello, Kirot, or Tumusime a slave. Habeas corpus. If her husband is arrested and not known where it is, but you know it's within the states, he can apply and will be brought. The third one is torture. In the past, if Okello stole chicken, the judge could rule, or the magistrate could rule, give him 10 strokes, not more. Not even courts of law has the power. Then the last one is
fair hearing.
A fair hearing. Please listen to him or her. Remember, these 4 rights have nothing to do with freedom of speech. What does that mean? It means, therefore, freedom of speech should be used judiciously and in context. And that's why those other laws are passed. Okay? Now, those past laws are passed. But I like to say, in practical terms, therefore, the 2 laws, computer used and then the public order, are actually meant to say, please express yourself within the context. That is why that right is not among the 4. It means that right can be managed, okay? And one of the ways of management is by our legislature, which Honorable served in Parliament for a long time. Those are the views of the people, the entire 45 million people. We all can't go into that assembly. So we have representatives like Honorable who was there to say, how are you going to make us manage this right? And therefore the 2 laws come up, power and the computer misuse. But in practical sense, I like to share with Honorable that the freedom of expression is very, very much exercised. And again, as he puts it, if you said in context with the region, there's no way, nobody has failed to cartoon Museveni in any way you can cartoon. Nobody has failed. If you see the WhatsApp messages that I see, that people express in the various WhatsApp forums, the multiple hundreds of radio stations all over the country where people phone in and talk, the televisions that are there, the only thing is that these rights are being managed. And why is it being managed? Because the constitutional framers thought that they don't qualify among the 4. Their rights, they must be respected, they must be adhered to, but must be adhered to within the context. That is why it is managed. But apart from legislation and institutional framework, the practicality is that people in Uganda exercise their views everywhere. In social media, notwithstanding that Media Act, on radios, on TVs, everywhere, okay. in written print and everywhere. So I really want to say freedom of expression is not bottled up, as Honorable seem to ally.
Just Honorable, I want to just have a follow-up question for retired Major. Major, you're a lawyer, and you did mention to us very clearly Article 44, one of which is the right to fair hearing. Now, how do you relate that right, which is a fundamental right, to the police policy of shoot to kill? Because I think there was a statement that was made.
No.
Shoot to kill.
We didn't make such a statement. We didn't.
So you still want me to answer? Yes,
we didn't make such a statement of shoot to kill. I don't
okay,
know where
take out of action.
Getting...
Okay, those who are taken out of action, did they have a right to fair hearing?
No, but with the circumstances matter in this context. The 2 incidents I've talked about, our officers were patrolling and they were shot at.
It was exchange of fire.
It was exchange of fire. The incident in Busoga, where they were pursuing an assailant armed with a gun, he shot first, actually. One of what they don't tell you is that an officer of the UPDF is dead, actually, during that exchange. So what do you mean by a fair hearing when you're confronting an armed person who's actually shooting at you? So the circumstances matter.
So it was
These people were not executed. No.
And the principle of fair hearing means you have had one side. You have not had the other side. So it's a position of juxtaposing. The practical sense say in court, where somebody is accusing another, and court makes a ruling without hearing the other. So the principle of fair hearing is not really like, it's not like, the facts is not like you're stating. The facts is you have a matter where you have to hear. You have already had one side. Please hear also the other side.
Okay, perhaps maybe you've tried to enlighten me, because what I had imagined is that because action was taken, which was, I should say, the last course of action, taking out a civilian. So perhaps they didn't have the right to even justify why they were doing what they were doing. Okay, but anyway, be it as it may, Honorable, let me come to you. Previously, when we had attacks in Kampala, our government was quick to say that this is an act of the ADF. And very quickly, we had to launch and pursue the ADF in DRC. Is this another form of terrorism? Could we be quick to imagine it is another terror attack on the country?
There are a number of theories, but let me first just add something to Article 44, the segment on torture. Maybe I live in a different country, but I watch people on TV who have been under custody, police, military, they are civilians, and they have all manner of scars on their bodies. You wonder whether they were treated fairly, whether they were tortured, whether it was what. I mean, I see this on our screens every other time. So maybe the police has a way of having their own right to torture. But yes, to torture
We
others.
don't have the right.
Yeah, so if as Major has argued, I think we don't want to put a blind eye on some of those incidents. They are extremely painful. For every person that is tortured in this country, there is a family, there is a relative. For every person that is killed extrajudicially, like the other Haji who was shot before his children, they are children. They have sentiments. They have feelings. So we can do the gymnastics. We can say how we feel, how the way we want to clothe it. But the reality is that there are people who feel very hurt about some of those issues. And it is very wrong for government to pretend that it's not a big issue. Because it puts a dent on the credibility of government. And the worst the government can want is to lose credibility among the ordinary population. Anyhow, I long ago put aside my right to keep reminding the NRM that they should behave very well, because I think they have also reached a certain level.
Honorable,
So,
may I say this? Just sorry.
Yes.
I was saying my import of Article 44 was to help me develop the point that the freedom of speech can be discussed, can be modified. I was just trying to develop a point. I was not saying that torture I hope at some stage we shall come to it. We shall discuss it. Yeah. But I was just importing Article 44 to help me develop my point that the other freedom of speech is not one of them. Meaning, therefore, it is right to pass the public order management. It is right to pass the computer. I was not saying there is no torture. I am saying we can come to torture later. So and neither am I saying there is torture. I'm not saying there is torture. But only that I just want to be contextual that I was developing my point to freedom. Yes. In other words, I was excluding it is not one of those rights that under no circumstance must not be touched. And that's why I mentioned the other four. But I know that at some stage we are coming to torture, and then we shall deal with it at that. So I was just developing my point.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was also, I just added on the point that was being developed.
Mm.
But then I also, as I said earlier, the aspect of whether we have enough freedom in this country, there is managed freedom, as you've rightly said. You manage using the Public Order Management Act and whatever. Again, as ordinary citizens, let me talk here from a citizen's perspective, not military people like you, you know what you're doing there. I'd like to let you know that we sit and watch when 2-3 young men try to get to in the streets of Kampala to demonstrate or to deliver a letter to parliament against trafficking in persons. And how the whole, you see a police van of people with all manner of uniforms, grabbing these 2-3 and dumping them there in the car, and they're driven like ADF. And then another day, you see another group of people, a huge group, even a bigger group, being escorted by the police because they are talking about the EU resolution. It sends a mixed signal. It gets people feeling hurt. And I can tell you, doesn't matter whether we have computer misuse, it doesn't matter whether we have Public Order Management Act, as long as a population gets disenchanted, you can only expect such negative tendencies. But I was about to go to theories about, what was your question again?
The attacks, could we construe this to be one of the actions of the ADF that we quickly assumed previously?
No, but out there, let me tell you what people say. One, that every time government wants to justify something, they begin some of those funny maneuvers. When government seemed to want to get to the jungles of Congo, I'm just doing a reported speech, so that is when the Kampala incidents took place. Up to today, we don't even know which ADF was arrested and has been prosecuted out of Kampala. And again, when you keep reports to yourselves, you leave us speculating a lot. The other one is that when there is need to increase the defense budget, certain things happen in this country. And then all of a sudden you find a minister on the floor, now they have hit a police post, blah, 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 and before you know that. But what disappoints me again as a laywoman is the budget that is given to the Criminal Investigation Department. And I would like to ask Afande, look here. How come these events are surprising you? Where is the CID in police? We thought they would be everywhere embedded with us finding information. Now you are also surprised like me and him. So who knows when things are coming? We thought you in the institutions of the army and in the institution of police, you have the ability to go around, get signals even before these events happen. They happened the first time. We don't know the motive. They happened. So you are now relying on chance. If we can hit them, when they come, we shoot them, we shoot. And now you become like us. I mean, if he attacks me here, I will also pick my book and we begin fighting. Whoever falls down, we go on.
Afande, these are very serious indictments, but as you respond to them, I just want you to examine for us how quickly some of these posts have been overrun. The police posts, I mean. We have seen incidents where some of them, the police officers actually flee away and left their guns there. So is it a matter of underfunding? Is it a matter of understaffing? Because the police should have the capacity to repel such a force. But the way with which some posts have been overrun so quickly, does it really raise some question marks? But also, what Honorable is saying, that are these orchestrated to justify an additional budget?
Well, I would like you to report on an informed point of view. I don't know what you mean by overrun. I don't know which examples you have in your mind, which specific post has been overrun.
Like Chanja, they shot
do you
and
mean?
the policemen ran away.
That is not true totally. The police were there at the post. The person who shot kept on moving. They actually pursued him. There was a standby patrol vehicle a few meters away that pursued the motorcycle. So I don't know what you mean by, it was actually 2 bullets the person shot while in motion. It was the ride by shooting. So I really want to come to this with an informed point of view. There is no police post that has been attacked anywhere and officers have been overrun, that they abandon everything and go away. The post that was attacked is only Busika, where they shot at the officers that were on duty. Some of them, of course, while you're taught techniques, if they start shooting, you can't just, when you're not armed, you can't just go and fend off the attacker. You have to take cover. Some of them took cover. And the assailants, in a way, in Busika tried to burn the post. But of course, the community gathered and the reinforcements came in, but eventually they had gone away with the guns. So we have not had any incident apart from the one where in, I would say, in Mbale, where the officers, maybe that's the issue you're claiming, that the minister said that some of these are orchestrated, the 2 guns that were stolen, and the radio call, while it was just laxity by some of the police officers at that station who were sleeping, actually. The assailants came in, just picked the radio call and the guns. So it's just the laxity of those police officers, and that is also being managed at that level. So any incident where that our officers have just run away and fled because of fear, no, we have not had that.
So they took cover, but they did not run.
The what?
They took cover, but did not run.
It was only in Busika where they took cover. I think we have one survivor, the OC. She took cover, but also inside the same post. Yeah, but again, that doesn't mean she ran away.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe she was also asking that do we are being surprised. No, that is not true. There are a lot of incidents that have been foiled by, which could have been fatal in nature. A lot of bombs that have been put away by our security. Not all these incidents are informed to you, but we have also managed to come and inform you. Some of them are put on the media. You saw how many bombs we have detonated safely because we have raided the house and we found this person with bomb-making material and bombs. Some of these things happen on the media every day. So that information doesn't just drop by chance. There are systems that are in place that are there to protect the Ugandans. Yes, something like that can happen, but it doesn't mean that we are not doing anything. We are just waiting for chance to land and we get the assailants. No, there are a lot of systems that have been put in place and they've really done well in protecting Ugandans. I will not go much into the nitty-gritty.
Remember that the good that you do is difficult to come in the news, but
and
the bad
also,
comes
yes,
out quickly.
It comes out quickly.
So the good you do is never
it only
noticed.
airs once, if it is good and at the scene, and after that, no one will talk about it. But if something bad happens, this is something we shall talk about.
But I almost can speak with authority.
Yes.
At least the time I was chairperson PAC, the weakest point of the police budget was actually investigation.
Yeah, we do. We still have an issue with investigation, and for recent, our director CID was informing the public how they are planning to merge the systems, government systems, to help monitor cases, case backlogs, and we believe if these things are electronic, they will help us in a way also monitor, because many of these people that are our attackers are not people that are new to us. These are people that we've arrested, served sentences, gotten out on their freedom, to do the same thing, or they're out on bail and doing the same thing. So we need to have a system that is, one, maybe with the prison services, justice system, to always monitor up those cases, even when the suspects are out, and also recruiting more CID officers, and quite a lot of things that are still needed. But I would say we are trying to work with what is available as of now. But
All right.
we see a bright future in front.
Retired Major, just speaking from the views of Afande and Honorable here, they seem to suggest that there's some bit of lack of funding. The funding maybe is not very sufficient. But if you look at our national budget, the security takes a very large chunk. So now I ask myself, we are funding a very large chunk to security. What part of security exactly are we financing if the police is saying that they are insufficiently funded?
I think Honorable said that when she was chairing PAC, she only noticed that part of the department, meaning therefore that she saw the other parts where it is going. For example, if you talk in terms of the army, fuel alone takes a lot of money. The vehicles that consume the fuel. You're not talking of hardwares like helicopters. You're not talking of hardwares like other military equipment. So it is not hard to know where the money really goes.
But look
so
at the
similar
welfare.
with police.
Look at the welfare of police officers. Look at
Yeah, that's
their
what I'm saying.
residential
Similar
areas.
to police, the money goes also in hardware areas. There are many vehicles and many fuel consumption and all that. So the hardware takes a bit of it. But now that Honorable is seeing it, it's our pleasure, because whenever for us in government tend to say we are inadequately funded, please help us, say no, you are misusing the money. But if the public is using, I think there are some points where even during the case of Kale Kayura, even took parliamentary committees to inspect how badly police were sleeping. The idea was to persuade the public to say the money you're giving us is not enough. So we have been crying that the money is not enough. And it is also good that the public is saying it is not enough. But as for the one that is given, how effectively it is used, it is always given with clear budget line. No money is just thrown there. Money is given with clear budget line, what is going to buy, and the parliament always dissects it and sees it. Apart from unclassified budget, which is a small fraction in the security sector, the rest of the money provided for are itemized and very clear in spending. And there are auditors there too, like Auditor General. So, but all in all is that the money given is not yet enough. And it is only unfortunate that in times of security, we realize that the sensitive areas like CID is not captured. Similar thing in the Ministry of Defense. So it is good that the public sees it, and that has been our cry. And then above, we call for more support and more finance from the public and from Parliament.
Yeah, Retired Major, one of the aspects that should have enhanced police investigation is if we could have real-time footages, right? I recall sometime you committed to Ugandans that you shall procure CCTV cameras. I don't know how far we went with that, whether they were procured. Maybe we could get an audit. Because by now, really, police should have been able to know that, oh, this happened in Busika and we had a camera that captured these people and, fast-track investigation. But
I will pass that to him, but let me just comment this. So the CCTV cameras were bought, but I think it helps more into investigation. It will explain more. Recently, I'm a beneficiary of CCTV camera. Somebody purported to have brought a lorry tata full of GNATs for somebody, meant to take to Lira. He went to Mitiana. So when we alerted police with the relevant number plates, police was able to intercept and find out. The lorry was in Mukono. From Arua, destined to Lira. It had already offloaded in Mitiana, in Mubende actually. It had offloaded in Mubende, continued to Kampala and was caught in Mukono. So that is it. But of course, this camera cannot be everywhere. But maybe can explain better. His question is whether or not, or to what effect has the camera.
I don't know
And
I don't know the audit you are talking about, whether the cameras were bought or not.
yeah, we could start from there, whether they were bought or not.
Well, we had previously informed you that the camera issue was in phases. We were done with phase 1, phase 2, and we were to continue with phase 3, where we had to identify more points that are still probably black spots, and not only being black spots, but also places where these other cameras can't reach that are already available, where we can install more cameras. But I would say that the process is still ongoing, and the ones that are available, were not with, of course, notwithstanding these issues we get with cutting of our cables due to the construction. Sometimes we have an issue with power, which we have, of course, worked on, making sure that all our command centers have a generator. That is all government funded. And so the issue that used to be of power is also phasing out very, very fast. And we can say that where the cameras have been, we have been able to stop crimes from happening, intercept vehicles, and also identify criminals, and also gather evidence that has helped us in courts of law.
All right, thank you. Let's take a short commercial break, and we shall pick it up from there with still the same topic, but as further as human rights, torture, and many much more. See you shortly after.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Honorable, let me just rephrase my question to you once again. There is conflict in Eastern DRC, in Goma. Can we, by any chance, say that this could be a spillover from what is happening in our neighboring region, and it is just spilling over to Kampala?
But the Honorable answered you.
No.
Well, I follow the security people.
She did not.
They will tell you there is ADF camped there. And then you also read tweets on social media that don't touch the M23, they are our relatives, and so on and so forth. And that's why probably takes me back to the question of our budgeting. I don't think we lack money in Uganda. What we do lack in Uganda is financial discipline. And what is wrong with the police force is prioritization. That's problem number one. They seem to have their priorities wrong. If you look at what the type of gear that is packed in Naguru for crowd control, waiting for me to go to the streets to complain about corruption, you will get shocked at how much the police are sinking money in the wrong thing. And then when it comes to securing our lives, recruiting more police, putting them in the police posts of Serere, they say they have no money. So it's wrong prioritization. Of course, too, the commander-in-chief also owns the budget initiative. That's what the Constitution says. So it's not Parliament to decide that this amount be allocated to Ministry of Defense. It is the President, who is also the Minister of Finance, by the way, who has the budget initiative. Of course, that's what the Constitution says. I think I'm trying to recollect. But then there is a Minister of Finance acting on behalf of the President when it comes to budget formulation. So you can't blame Parliament, maybe now. But I recall that Article 76 at that time said Parliament did not even have the capacity, for lack of a better word, to add 1 shilling. Any 1 shilling to anything. You can only reallocate from within. I don't know whether that one has been changed now. It is now over 10 years when I last was in Parliament. I think close to 10 years. So I no longer know many things. But so it's not the public, it is you in the state who should know where your priorities are. Thirdly, defense has continued to enjoy the highest chunk of our budget. I think it comes number one. And one would think, yes, national security, defense is extremely important. Let it be number one. But let's see the value for money. If you ask me what I think about the goings on in the DRC, I think we are both the solution and the problem in the DRC. We just need to sort ourselves right in the Great Lakes, really. I think we want to be the solution, but we also want to be the problem, really. Or we first become the problem, and then we try to be the solution, and then we don't enjoy the trust. So people begin to think, Uganda, will they solve the problem in the jungle of Goma? Are they genuine? Have they come for another reason? Are they going to loot our timber? You know all the stories of looting timber. And then we are paying. Right now we are paying. Have we finished paying that money for the stolen timber of another?
Have we even started?
Yeah, I think we have started. I think we've started.
They started.
Yeah. So people suspect our motives. And therefore, even if we had good intentions of being in the DRC, it's just terrible. It's just terrible. You go there and do the wrong things and then end up with also a spillover, so many refugees burdening this country, and we get an outstretched budget. It's a mix-up that I can only say maybe those in the state know better how to deal with it.
All right, Paula, let me just come to you. Not so long ago, I think about a month, there was a human rights conference that was held in Nairobi, and Ugandans were paraded there, and some with limbs cut off, some with bruises all over their bodies, and the allegations.
I'm told one of them who appeared there was an accident victim, paraded as a torture victim.
Yeah, but some were actually paraded here in Uganda. I think at the NUP headquarters, they've continuously paraded.
Only yesterday.
Even yesterday?
Yeah.
So I don't know, as someone who is part of the ruling political party, how do these things augur with you? Because you said that there is peace and security, but I don't know how you define peace and security.
So you're saying, how does this augur? How does what augur?
How do those things that we see on TV, how does it augur with you as someone who serves in the ruling political party?
I think you are asking about rights in relation to torture.
Yes.
I don't know whether you wanted to bring it at some stage, but I can also bring it now that Uganda is assessed by procedure of global assessment. You recall recently Attorney General was in Geneva to answer under the UN on our status on the Convention of Torture, what is called CAT, Convention Against Torture. This is a procedure where state parties, 193 state parties, the whole world, are free to ratify a convention and be bound by it. And Uganda has ratified that. So when you ratify as a country, the world now assesses you on your compliance. And I think that would be the nearest indicative status of where we are and what the world thinks of us. But before that, I can say any torture display or any torture performance is bad. And despite I don't want it, and my party doesn't want it. Therefore, we could see from what the world told us when Honorable Kiwanuka was there, Kiriowa, where you said you heard that some women intervened in the room and they used it attack. Actually, here is their report. This was a report of the committee of experts, the UN Committee on Torture. It's 10 pages, and our country is assessed. Let me also mention that I have been on this committee.
Paula, is it a question of form or substance? Because that is the form, but the substance is what
you see. Don't overlook a UN procedure. UN procedure, a document like that is like a ruling of a court. And you're a lawyer. When a court makes findings, it is detailed with evidence. Maybe you haven't read it. You should better read it. But it's a finding like a court. It's called a concluding observations. I've had the opportunity to be in this body for 8 years. I've been elected for 2 terms, 2 Kisanja. on the UN Committee of Experts, what you call a judgment. So this is a judgment of UN. And I've been doing this for 8 years. I've been in Geneva doing the same thing. So, having said that, we don't condone torture. It is in Article 44. And for your information, the way you want to package it is that there are practical means to prohibit. Starting with the training of police officers and soldiers, notwithstanding the legislations there too. Notwithstanding the law which provides that you no longer can use Attorney General as a defense. In the past, if police went to arrest somebody and you break somebody's testicle and you sue police, he would say, you sue Attorney General. It is not me. Me, I was simply suing Attorney General. So all that has been done. Now, cases of indiscipline by officers have been dealt with, especially in the army. It warrants court-martial and death sentence. It has occurred in 2 incidences where officers, especially UPDF, who do that to civilians in the process of arrest, in demonstration, were sentenced by court-martial to death. One in Rubaga, one actually occurred in Owoyesigyire police because he had arrested these people and purported to have brought them to police, and he did what he did. So, we don't condone torture, not at all, not even any single inch. The president has given repeated directives on this. But the officers and men that we have are part of us. They are also provoked, and also some have limited conception to training.
Let me speak to an officer who is here with us. Afande, you've heard what Pollar is saying, that at times it is overhandedness of officers.
True.
If you hear the stories of some Ugandans, they say that I was arrested by police and I don't know where I was taken. I was held in Communicado. I was detained, you know, in what we call safe houses. I don't know, is this part of the practice of police? Because people have said that at times police becomes overly zealous because they're trying to get someone to confess, maybe to have committed a given crime, because you lack capacity to investigate. So you will use force and duress to coerce a suspect to either concede or to confess, so that your investigation that you're short of is fast-tracked. But above all, I don't know, the arrests that are extra-constitutional, I don't know, is it the police? Is it the military?
The president, this chief armed forces has always come out and given his side on torture, like Honorable has said, and the Inspector General of Police with our line minister of Internal Affairs have always come out to condemn any act of torture within the police. So I can ably come here and sit and tell you, we have never passed a policy that deals with torture. It has never been passed. So we condone torture to its fullest. We condemn it, rather. Yeah. We condemn it to its fullest. And we have always come out to... there are a lot of people who have sued our officers in courts of law on allegations of torture. And we have never seen the police come out to defend them in courts of law against torture. These are individual actions by specific officers, and it is upon themselves to defend themselves against those allegations. So a lot of cases have gone through court. Many victims have won, and a lot of course, there is what they call a court compensations. Awards have all been done by court. So I cannot stand here that torture is not there, but it is not something the force can say we allow to happen, and we've ever passed a policy or we brief our officers to do. No.
Okay, I find that as an institution that is charged with the role to protect Ugandans, I have seen political parties arraigning names of missing persons, missing Ugandans. I don't know. Your role is to protect. Do you have an account of these people who are
I
missing?
can ably tell you that we don't have any person in our custody whom we can't account for. So I don't know if they say that these people are with us, they should bring those names. Several occasions told them to bring those names to the Inspector General of Police. And we give them a report. Our report was read by the Internal Affairs Minister some time back. If they mean that these people are in police custody, we have ably informed them that they are not in any of our gazetted places. You talk about safe houses, the police doesn't own any safe house. We don't have any safe house.
Excuse me. I want to follow up on this issue of missing persons. Missing persons is a very serious accusation. But then I think
the people that we are arrested, they also sometimes tend to say that they are being kidnapped.
Now,
they've also put that record straight.
One wonders where the burden is. Because if it is coming from politicians and they allege Mr. X is missing, you see, in law, if somebody is accused, for example, in court, and you come up and say, you're accusing Okello, but this Okello is dead. So he who alleges has the burden. You said Okello is charged in court and you're saying he's dead. Bring death certificate. Now, how far are we going to go if everybody brings an allegation to you and you carry the burden of proof? Somebody comes up with a long list. It cannot prove that actually that individual person existed in the first place, and therefore since he existed and people know, is nowhere now. So suppose somebody just comes with a list of 300 people and said, these ones are missing. How would we know? I think we need to go back and really be clear about the claim of missing persons. Some of them we may have to need proof that really the person existed. But what has been happening in parliament by leader of oppositions or any political party is to simply throw a list and leave the burden on the state to prove that they are actually missing. It is them to actually prove that they are missing.
Isn't the state accountable for every citizen?
But the problem is, how do I know that the names you are saying are actually missing persons?
Don't you have any database?
Don't
you have any database
think
as a state?
if the names are presented, the state has capacity. Let's imagine tonight as we talk, something begins in some village deep down there in Lango. Do you know that in every village we have some internal security something? If I wanted a passport today and I go there, they will say, let's go to the district internal security officer, who he will even check the name of my great-grandfather. Within 3 hours, they have that to confirm to immigration or NIRA that I am a genuine Ugandan.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So that is why he is asking you. The state, first of all, has an obligation to protect us and our property. That's a given. We are all agreed on that.
The state cannot not know about its citizens.
So, if the leader of the opposition brings a name and says, Mr. Opio is missing, Opio of district Amolatar, Opio of sub-county this, he is from this parish, really,
NIN number.
within less than 1 hour, because it's in the interest of the state to disprove anybody who is misinforming the public. That's why you have Luke here always, talking on media, clarifying things. So this matter has dragged on. I follow in that house for over 2 years now. Why don't you in the state, pick up this list and say, now today we have assembled LOC1 of that village. He says such a person has never existed in that village. What will it cost the state? It will
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
being accountable.
That's what I'm saying. The list that has been provided is list of names, no further detail. What they have done is to shift the burden of proof on the state. Now, what does the state do to discharge that burden? is to say we don't know them, we don't have them. Now, it is supposed to be he who alleges has the burden of proof. They should allege with the NIN number, with the parents, with the village. For now, Honorable, what I have had a look at the list, it's just a matter of throwing the list at you, and it's like making you dirty and you clean yourself.
But that is simple. That is simple because the relevant minister can now write and say, I have received your list. Provide for me the addresses of those people, and I also want to look at these women who always cry before the cameras if they are hypocrites.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yes, because you can't collect women and children and they are crying.
I'm not sure whether the president, the minister has put it in writing, but I'm sure the minister has already replied that supply more and better facts and particulars to this. But so far what has been happening is just lay the claim to the state, leave the burden of proof. Really? But he who alleges has the burden to prove.
That is only in court. There is also politics in that.
But then now if you throw the list to me, really, and you expect me to say, oh yes, I have them, when I don't have them.
Not really.
And even to know whether this body corpus, as opposed to body corporate, whether this human being really existed.
Major, what I am saying is that, first of all, you all know the scenario of Parliament. Parliament is a political space. That's one thing. So you expect that. But because of the gravity of the matter, the minister with the mandate could go an extra mile and bring these matters to rest and say, okay, today I am committing to follow this matter. I want you, law, let's bring this to an end. Give me those things, those names, those addresses today. I also want those women today. And
that's why I'm saying orally, at least the minister has done it.
Anybody who is masquerading will shut up.
Orally, the minister has done it.
Yes,
Unless I am not yet to see where they has written. But the government and through the minister has always said, you have brought these claims. Please bring better and further particulars to do. So that they carry the burden to prove. So far now, Honorable, as I'm telling you, the claim has simply been laid to government, and anybody can bring even a list of 500 and say they are missing. So you government now try to clean yourself from international community from this. You can't. It is he who alleges who should bring the claim. If you claim somebody is dead, you prove by death certificate. Because you are the one who is saying he's dead. So if you say he's lost, really prove that that body corpus, that human being really existed and is now
if government continues like that, this discussion will never end.
The minister has told them to bring more and better particulars.
The day the minister goes an extra level and says, okay, let's go list this list. Number one, which village? Because somebody must have complained from that village to the person who compiled the list.
Okay, I will follow it up with the minister.
The day the minister does that, this misinformation will end. But as long as the minister absconds the responsibility,
okay, fine.
and simply
I can promise you, I'm going to ask the minister if they have tasked claimants to discharge their burden of proof. In as far as did these human beings really existed, then if they really existed, then leave the loss to us. Because it is the government who should account for the missing persons anyway, within its jurisdiction. But at the moment is, did the alleged human being really existed? So I'm going to find it out with the minister. If he went beyond the oral demand for burden of proof, if it did not go beyond the oral demand for burden of proof, I can pick it up and make the government follow it up. Okay. So that we prove really, did these human beings in the first place exist? Okay. Then he who says got lost should tell us, should convince us they existed.
Major.
Then we take the burden and look for them.
Major, maybe I have a misinterpretation of the law. But what I know is that when the state is involved in any matter, the state in fact has the burden of proof. For example, in criminal matters, when, for example, you kill my brother, just hypothetically speaking, and I report this case to the police, and the DPP, the matter is transferred to the DPP because of capacity. that as a civilian, as a citizen, I have no capacity to investigate. So
You are right, you are misinterpreting. You ask whether you are misinterpreting.
No.
Rightly, you are misinterpreting. Why you are misinterpreting is that the scenario that you are explaining, if I kill your brother and you go to the state, remember it is Uganda versus me.
Yes.
So it is the state who is accusing. And that is why the state has the burden to prove. Because it is Uganda versus Awich. It is Uganda accusing. But this time it is this. Now, in alleged allegations, for example, now Uganda versus Awich, okay? It is the state to prove the burden that Awich really killed, okay? But if Awich is given bail, and Awich goes to Lira, and Awich gets lost, and the wife comes and say, my lord, the Awich you're accusing is dead. Now the burden shifts. It is now the wife to prove Awich is actually dead. You understand? Uganda versus Awich the suspect. It is the state with the burden to prove Awich committed.
Okay.
Awich gets bail in the process, goes to Lira, disappears. The wife reports to court that the accused is dead. Now the burden shifts. It is now the wife who is alleging death to prove that actually Awich is dead.
Okay, I think fair enough. But the one thing that we agree on is that you cannot run away from this responsibility as a state. That we began by saying that the social contract that the state has with its people entails security.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All I want is prove that these persons really existed in real life and now they are not seen.
Yeah.
If that person existed, the state has the capacity to find out is either in a chair in Sweden or anywhere.
Okay.
If indeed he's lost and dead, the state will find out. If it fails, it will say, we have tried to this extent and fail. But first we have to establish, did that person really exist?
All right. That is, I think, your responsibility now as a state. You have NIDA, you have all these things. Let me come back to you. Would you, in your own experience and in your working experience still, would you relate the rate of unemployment in Uganda to the status of insecurity? That because someone is unemployed, they are idle, they are they'll go an extra mile to find something to eat. So, as a police officer, is there a relationship between unemployment and security?
Well, yeah, it is true. It's there. But of course, you will also get to know that some of these habits, some of these crimes are habits to some people. You find people who are addicted to drugs, and you wonder how they get money to buy the drugs. You find people who are addicted to all sorts of things. So I believe, yes, it might be unemployment, but something that is avoidable that many of us can do without. We can do without committing crimes, because I've seen many of if someone commits a crime today and gets 300 million through punching a Chinese man in the streets, and you find the same person doing the same crime. So where is that money that is stolen? Did it benefit? So it is not something we can really say it is unemployment. Some of these criminals have made it maybe sort of like a business, recruiting more and more of these young youths into this kind of activity, and promising them a lot of money through the kind of activity. So there are a lot of aspects away from the unemployment that are twinned together to cause the insecurity.
All right, thank you. Honorable, let me just get back to you. As we are discussing human rights in Uganda, one of the sureties or one of the institutions that should be guaranteeing Ugandans their rights is the judiciary. And I think this is clearly put out in Article 126 of the Constitution. So do you think the judiciary, in its capacity, as it stands now, do they have what it takes to guarantee the rights of Ugandans? Because in case of any conflict, the judiciary is an arbiter. Do they have capacity to render justice and to uphold the rights of Ugandans?
I think perhaps in...
Of course, you'll have to examine their independence, maybe.
Yeah, but perhaps in criminal matters, I think the judiciary could still be doing fair enough. But, you know, I almost said when we were talking about the police, our judiciary and our police are rated as the most corrupt institutions in this country. And that speaks to how they deliver the services that they are mandated to do. So, are you in court against a powerful person? That's why you see all these land evictions. The other day I was listening to somebody, is it got a title to evict a whole 45 villages or something like that? So those who can afford, who can buy justice, they get it in our judiciary. The level of corruption has affected the independence of the judiciary. But also, when you now talk about politically related complaints to the judiciary, and you have cases like Honorable Segirenya and Honorable, who is the other one? The judiciary also behaves in a very political way. I guess that is why it is very difficult to pursue these missing persons, because the missing persons are assumed to be associated with, for instance, Snoop. And so it is Snoop raising this concern. And when you bring in the politics, you know how many political cadres we have in that judiciary. Today, he's a lawyer for NRM. Tomorrow he's in the Court of Appeal. And me, Alaso, I'm supposed to stand before Justice so-and-so pleading my political case. Where do you think I get fairness in such a scenario? Today, I am an NRM member of Parliament. I lose. Next week, I am appointed a judge of the High Court. Really, and then you're listening to a complaint, a political complaint between a person of NRM and the one who is not NRM. So our judiciary, I think if it has to recover its image, they really have to rethink the appointment of judges in this country. Otherwise, that institution is getting watered down by the day. I was actually surprised the other day when the Chief Justice was complaining about the Prime Minister going and taking over the Magistrates' Court. These things started happening long ago. The soldiers took over the High Court in Uganda Road and rearrested suspects. It has been the trend. So I don't know why the Chief Justice was unhappy the other day. The judiciary has been hijacked step by step.
Major, I cannot avoid bringing this back to you because the issue of the judiciary still lingers in this conversation. Questions around their independence. Is it about the mode of appointment? Is it about the security of tenure? What exactly, how best can we realize independence of the judiciary? Because as we discuss the issue of human rights, somehow these disagreements end up in court. So do our courts, can they dispense justice in a very neutral and impartial manner?
The issue of independence and judiciary is very important. First of all, going forward on the issue of human rights, the officers ably said that so many adjudications have been made in favor of victims of human rights, both in human rights tribunal and in civil courts, in billions now. So if judiciary was to favor the state and the state officials, no amount of money in billions would have been lost like that. It is there. You can check the data even in this report. The UN recognizes that billions have been awarded. So that to show that the judiciary is independent. But also on the recruitment, I have repeatedly said that the law and the procedure that is here now was deemed to be fit. And of course, as a country, we don't operate on hard and frozen systems. If people feel concerned about the mode of procedures, as exercised in other jurisdictions, in Kenya, wherever, we are free to come forward and do it. But also is that most of our actors, political actors, seems to interpret judiciary conveniently. If today I'm a member of FDC and I went to court and it is ruled in my favor, oh, judiciary is working. But if tomorrow it is ruled in the other, no, it is not working. So that is really unfortunate. We should leave it, take it as it is ruled in its independence. On the appointments, for example, the cadre being referred to was my friend. We are both directors. And actually now I'm the acting director for legal affairs in NRM. I'm holding 2 portfolios. I'm director for external and I'm acting director legal because no substantive director has been appointed because Justice Oscar Kihika has now been appointed to Court of Appeal. And there is no prohibition that when you serve here, you are not eligible to that. If that is what the law prescribes, then some of us would choose to say, no, I want to do my career in future, so let me not be a director in NRM. But in a way, all these people who are recruited from among the population. Each and every one of them have their political feelings. Even those who have not explicitly manifested, it belongs to one point and party or another. But remember that when they are appointed, they take to some oath. And that oath is supposed to supersede all your other historical. You are reborn, you are rebirth. It is a rebirth. So it is expected that that should take place. So, and the judiciary bites both ways. And that's why you see the state also complains and the ordinary persons complain. Because we are really tied down to these technicalities. And yet the Constitution provides that justice should not be dispensed on technicality. See the case where the Prime Minister intervened. It was clear that the orphan was really suffering injustice, where the magistrate imprisoned her for 2 million and they wanted a house in Kampala to be taken for 7 million. So you really see that the technicalities, whether you were not served or all this and all that, it bites. So it is not, if we are questioning judiciary, we should really questioning regardless of our political affiliation, because it affects all of us. Remember, judiciary is here today and tomorrow. So if you make it biased, then where are you going? So all of us want an independent and impartial judiciary. But we should also not form our consciousness on judiciary basing on our political affiliation.
Okay, but then what do you make of the actions of the Prime Minister to attempt to overturn
the action of the Prime Minister may not be justice, but it was popular. It was a popular act, right, but only that it was devoid of procedural justice. Everybody applauded that the Prime Minister actually saved the poor woman. But the lawyers were saying, you should have saved her by appealing. You know, when a decision is handed, you have to appeal against that decision and all that. Okay, but so the Prime Minister's decision was a popular act, much as it was not judicious. But and I'm sure a lady like Honorable Alaso, being a lady as she is, deep inside her heart, she really knows that the Prime Minister saved the poor woman.
Major Professor Oloko Nyango wrote a very interesting book, When Courts Do Politics. So this popularity you're talking about, are you inviting popularity and politics into the courts of law? Because the courts are supposed to operate without interference.
I'm not inviting, but I'm saying, I'm not inviting, you ask me.
The court is not there to make popular decisions. They are there to make right decisions. Popularity is the business of politicians.
I can as well withdraw the word popular and replace it with right. The Prime Minister's action was right, but was not judicious. Remove popular. I want to edit my statement. The Prime Minister's action was right, but it wasn't judicious. It was right in the sense that she did the correct thing. It was not judicious in that she didn't follow the technical procedural aspects of when a decision is handed, what do you do? But she was right. Please delete popular. Replace it with the word right. Okay, so she was right, but she was not judicious.
Okay, I have done.
And that now calls on the judiciary. That why, you see, even the law itself is supposed to promote and protect the community. Once you see the law and the procedures is acting as an impediment, then that law is not good. Even if it meant amendment, it should be amended. Because the way the judicial officer apply the law, they apply tie it in total impediment to social progress. They make the implementation and the operation of the law so much of an impediment that even a bystander would see that you are doing it. So the question of judiciary bites both ways.
Yeah.
It's not only our political opponent who are crying, like in the case of appointment. I mean, everybody. If that was the case, me, I'm a lawyer, then I wouldn't be a director, because I'd say, the law is saying if you work in a party, then don't do what? Don't be a judge in future. Suppose I wanted to be a judge. But as it stands now, the law presumes that all Ugandans have political affiliations in one way or another, and therefore we are free to be recruited in due process. And I repeat, if we feel that the process is not strong enough, borrowing from other jurisdictions, let's go in for it, and we strengthen our judiciary.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because if we are cognizant of the fact that we are in a multi-party dispensation, then I don't think it is only the NRM that speaks to the multi-party dispensation. I would want to wake up one morning and find some opposition lawyer. We have stalwarts in the law in the opposition. I would want to wake up one morning because we recognize that we are a multi-party dispensation and read names like Ben.
And I think many have been appointed. Did you remember Justice Kasule?
I want to read names like the Honorable Ben
Kasule.
Wacha. When you took away the Honorable Nshimi of NRM, we were together with the Honorable Ben Wacha in the same parliament. So I would like to read such names in the judiciary. Then it
And
will,
they have appeared.
then
Kasule was a
settle.
strong DP, and Kasule became.
It will settle the thinking that the judicial independence is being compromised by the appointment of NRM loyalists and cadres. It would just settle the matter.
No, but I like to say again that Kasule was a non-DP and he was appointed. And I can remember a few more names of judges. But the bad thing or the funny thing is, if you appointed Ben Wacha now to the bench, you will still cry that he has crossed. And yet we're saying, okay, let's, I mean, he qualifies. Yeah, he qualifies. But even if Ben Wacha is appointed today, they'll say he has crossed. But I know Kasule and many others who openly professed other political parties were brought to the bench and they served till retirement. So,
that's being presumptuous.
Okay, maybe
that we will cry out when an opposition party.
Yeah, Major, retired Major, I agree with you on the issue of that courts should be enjoined to administer justice without undue regard to technicalities. I think that is a fair score. Afande, on the issue of independence, I don't know if you have a comment about the judiciary, but I want us to speak about the police. The issue of corruption has come up, but also the question of your independence as the police really has been a matter of public debate for some time. I don't know, are you entirely independent? But if you concede deep down that you're not, then what are those factors compromising your independence? Is it also appointment of the IGP?
Orders from above.
Of course, you know, the appointments are made by the HE, the president. HE, the president, that is the Inspector General of Police and the deputy. And contract awarding is also through the different directorates is done by the president. Extensions and of course the police authority has the mandate to submit the relevant persons for the contracts, but the president does through his through his own discretion decides on whom they should award more awards. But overall, I think an issue to do with whether we are independent is visible. We try as much as possible to do work by the law. If we are doing anything against the law, that the penal code or any other laws, someone should always come out. Like I said, it is the things will not only end within police. If you feel that you have been treated unfair, that this is having a hand over the government, this investigation is having a hand over the government, you can protest in courts of law and put in your complaint. So Ideally, I don't
Because
see
there is
an
already
issue to do with.
there is a complaint that came from Honorable earlier on that, for example, there was a group of youth who were protesting for ECOP. That yes, they were against the UN resolution. Therefore, they were for pro ECOP.
No.
They were
It's
even given a
No.
police lead car. Then there was another group that was
Yes.
against ECOP that were actually fewer, but the force that was exerted on them. But no, these are issues on the same area, literally. So the independence could be around there. That those who were saying prostate.
You also look at the procedures that both parties went through to have the police work with them. The students, through their head teachers and different stakeholders, informed the police about this. That's why they had a vehicle opening the road, because it was a procession in a way. And the other aspect is something that just happened without us knowing that it was happening, which could, of course, at the end of the day, sabotage traffic within the city. That is not something we would want. But the first incident was planned with the police. And that is how it happened, and this didn't happen because this wasn't planned with the police.
All right, fair enough. Honorable, let me come to you. As we speak about rights generally, I want to focus a little bit on the rights of women. I know that Uganda is signatory to the Maputo Protocol of Mozambique that went ahead to enlighten and encourage the rights of women. But also I know we are part of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. But also our Constitution, I think Article 33, is very clear, the rights of women. So in your own analysis, do you think that besides the legal framework, in practice, are the rights of women really fundamental in this country? Because this comes at a time when we are having the 16 days of activism that is, around still ending gender-based violence and ending FGM and all these things. So let's just cast some light on the rights of women.
First, I think there's been a lot of progress in that area. Even just getting Article 33 into a constitution, I think must have been a very big landmark for this country. And then, of course, you have affirmative action in so many areas and engendered legislation. So these are things to be very proud about, even to be proud of numbers, to be proud about specific legislation, like legislation against gender-based violence, trafficking in persons, and so on and so forth. Those are things that we are happy about. And then we would, of course, will continue to ask for more demonstrable impact. You're looking at the number of young girls in this country that go through Entebbe Airport. People, you need to sit at Entebbe Airport and watch the young people. That's why, again, when the issue of, sorry to go back, when the issue of unemployment didn't seem to matter so much on the question of security, my heart was rather pained. You need to sit at Entebbe Airport and watch the cream of this country going into what looks like slavery in the Middle East. And you feel bad. And the bulk of them are girls. They are young women. And so here we are talking about progress in terms of legislation to protect the young women in this country, the women in this country. But at the same time, when it comes to implementation, you notice gaps. There are so many labor exporting companies that are extremely connected in this country. So connected that to the powers that be, that criticizing the way they manage these young girls when they send them out looks like taboo. It's like they become untouchable. That is the one segment. Two, of course, we have women in leadership. And then you want to explore the aspect of actual service delivery to the women of this country. where a situation where you still have mothers dying because they're bringing forth life in a nation. That's unacceptable. And our numbers are still high.
Maternal rates.
Yes, high maternal mortality rate. It is something that we would like to see government. You know, recently they built some hospital, this one next to Mulago. It's actually part of the Mulago complex. They said specialized maternal something.
Specialized women hospital.
Yes. And let me tell you, the cost in that hospital cannot allow these women of Kasangati, however much of a complication they have, they cannot get even to the gates of that hospital.
So it is a government hospital?
Yeah, it was built using taxpayers' money and is part of the Mulago complex. But the cost is extremely prohibitive. You need to go to our health center, 3s and 4s. Some of them even without a placenta pit. You deliver your baby, and you know in African culture, we say the placenta is the other baby. And you want the other baby to be really, decently, discarded. And you find the hospital, a health center does not even have a placenta pit. And then you're asking women to go and deliver. And then there's the question of drugs. So yes, we have the legal framework, we have women representatives, we have so many good things to talk about. But we need to see action that fosters the well-being of the ordinary woman. Don't talk to me about the Alasos who are in parliament who can afford the medical services, insurance. No, don't talk to me about those ones. Talk to me about that woman who is affected by climate change in the village, looking for firewood. Talk to me about that girl who is getting married early before she completes primary school. That is the way to go.
Retired Major, as we wrap this up, the issue of the rights of women, and she has pointed out something. The young women who leave this country to go largely to the Gulf countries, Oman, Saudi Arabia. The question of bilateral agreements, do these agreements emphasize the issue of human rights? Because I know either Saudi Arabia or some country in the Gulf has no provision for human rights in their social being. I think it's Saudi Arabia, I'm not so sure. But the issue of bilateral agreements, do you as a government emphasize the need for human rights?
Yes. First of all, I like to address, follow up on what Honorable Alaso said. She started off by mentioning the positives. And she said all those are what to be proud of. I like to say I like her objectivity. So while she's proud of those achievements, I am proud of her objectivity in that respect. So she's proud of the achievement. I'm instead proud of her objectivity because many of our colleagues don't even appreciate all this. But I also like to add that the United Nations and other agencies have a qualitative measure of how a state has progressed in the rights of women. And I think we are not doing badly. Of course, if you talk in political aspect, you will tell you Rwanda is above us.
Oh, yeah.
Rwanda is above us. But over and above, there's a qualitative assessment, and we are doing well. So I just like to add that. On the issue of externalization of labor, and you specifically ask about the bilateral arrangements, I like to say in a holistic term that we should look at externalization of labor from a global perspective. The world has realized that there's imbalance in labor, and our people don't seem to see this. People seem to think it is NRM inefficiency that is making people go out. No. I once boarded a bus in Berlin. I was visiting my friend, a professor in Berlin, whom we are working together with in Geneva. So when I boarded a bus, I reached this professor and I told him, Prof, it seems I boarded the wrong bus. The professor asked me why. In the bus, Professor, the youngest person was 65 years old. He said, no, this is a population here. There are no young people. So this already shows you that there's imbalance in labor around the world. Some parts don't have these people who could perform this, the other part don't have that. Now, that is why UN came up with a convention called Convention on Migrant Workers. And this is an old convention. Maybe it came after a convention on the rights of the child. But you can see that the global world, I mean the globe had identified this imbalance in labor. So people going to Middle East is not inefficiency of NRM, it is imbalance. Now, the convention is meant to protect the rights of migrant workers wherever they are in their host country and protect them home. And now that calls on what you are calling the bilateral. Even these bilateral arrangements it is provided already within the scope of the United Nations Conventions on Migrant Workers. I repeat, the migrant workers is not Uganda NRM inefficiency. It's a global aspect. For example, Honorable Alaso, Mexico has 10 million migrant workers in the United States. In fact, Mexico has always been laughing at America. If we withdraw our migrant workers, what will you do?
Actually, there was a video called A Day Without Mexicans.
Yes, A Day Without Mexican. Philippine
Yes.
has 11 million nurses around the world. 11 million around the world. And this shows you the imbalances in labor. If you go to Europe, America, nearly all the nurses are Filipino. Because there's imbalance in the global nature of labor. In Europe, you have only the old people, not the young. In Middle East, you don't have this. Honorable, let me finish this. Or you want to inform me something?
I just want to straighten up this. That I do agree with you that it's extremely important. We are part of a global community. But that does not take the responsibility of our government. And our government currently is the NRM. And the NRM must go into these bilaterals. The NRM must sanction, must create procedures here for labor exploitation. There is no country
I was coming to that.
Yes,
I agree with you.
That's where
I agree with you.
my problem is.
Yes, I agree with you. But I wanted our viewers to know that migration of labor is not a Ugandan perspective only. Migration of labor is a global aspect which has been catered for by the United Nations Convention on Labor because there's labor disparities around the world. Now, this convention expects two states, the exporting state and the host state, to do arrangement to cater for the rights of migrant workers in the host country and here. And that is when we call upon our government. And I was talking on patriotism. The day our Ugandan worker in Abu Dhabi gets in problem and consular services arrives there, you will see how this Ugandan will get patriotism. Because he will be working there and knowing that my country can offer me consular services when I need. Consular services is arrival of an embassy official at the scene of need. That is what we call consular services. So what is now happening is the operational mechanism, but not the inefficiency. Of course, government is trying its best to provide employment. But even however much you provide, you will still have surplus the way it is now. It will take us a long time to actually be in a surplus of labor, surplus of jobs as opposed to surplus of labor. It will take a long time. But for now, we are operating in surplus labor. Therefore, please, I like to repeat that labor externalization is not an NRM inefficiency. It's a global aspect. Go and ask Filipino with 11 million nurses. Go and ask Mexican with 10 million workers in America. So we should, as a country, do our due diligence to offer protection by way of bilateral arrangement and by way of close supervision of the competency of the exporting company. But going abroad is not NRM inefficiency.
Wow, thank you. Our time is fast spent, Major, so give us just 1 minute to give us your parting shots and last words on the show. Retired Major, I'll begin with you, then I'll then I'll conclude with the Honorable.
What I like to say is that NRM as a party has a contract with the people. We have been given the mandate for these 5 years. And in our mandate, we promise people that we shall offer peace and security. and we formed a government after winning election with relevant government agencies, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ministry of Defense. We shall proceed and ensure that peace is given to Ugandans. They enjoy peace. As on rights, we don't condone violation of rights. We protect rights to its fullest, and we call upon our brothers in the theater to observe it. One time we called on the Attorney General to explain the law to the National Security Council members. And that was to tell the National Security Council members to operate within the law and protect rights. We shall continue that. I thank viewers.
Thank you. Yes, Afani.
Viewers, thank you very much. I'm happy to have been part of this. And one thing is that we are going into the festive season. Many operations with security are going to be happening to see that we go through this festive season very well. And we appeal to members of the public to not distance themselves from us, to always approach us and give us information. At the end of the day, we are part of you, and we hope the best for you in terms of security. We have challenges, and never stop talking about them so that we can always correct them and wherever they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable.
The last 40 years of the NRM.
It has not reached 40
Yeah,
yet.
it's about to, as soon as this term is ending.
Now, let us first reach there.
Okay, so the almost 40 years of the NRM, the biggest promise NRM has given to Ugandans is the promise of personal security and whatever of their properties. And any negation of that will attract harsh criticism from the public. We expect better from a government whose highest expenditure is in the security segment. We expect better from a government that spent 40 years. We expect better from a government that came with a military outfit. We know they brought in their expertise. So we really hope to see you adjust this. But I still insist, you need to do a gun audit in this country. Afande, look, you people recruited crime preventers. We want to know where the crime preventers went and with how many guns.
The crime preventers were not armed.
So that we walk on the northern bypass when we feel very safe. When it comes to human rights and the government agencies, my thinking is that we would like to see individuals prosecuted. It is not enough for us to boast about awards in court. You know, when an officer abuses or tortures a person, and then the taxpayer, pays, they don't feel the pinch. So we would like to see these individuals.
Can sue them individually.
Yes,
and they have been sued.
And you cover them a lot in the forces. You really cover them. And lastly, when it comes to gender and women empowerment, please put more money on service delivery. It will help the women feel dignified in this country.
Wow, thank you very much, retired Major. Thank you, Pande. Thank you, Honorable, for sparing the time to be on our show this afternoon. Well, to the viewers, thank you as well for sparing the time this Friday to catch up with us. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.